Hello, my name is Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak, and I'm a humanities professor at Columbia University, and also, for the last 40 years, a trainer of teachers and a teacher of children in 2 Dalit communities in West Bengal. I'm 82 in 20 days. I forgot my blood thinner when I left the country for a conference. Concerned about an embolism, I called my doctor in New York with the phone number of the pharmacy closest to the conference hotel. Next morning, the medicine was in my hands. My pulse showed erratic and wildly irregular on my oximeter. I secured an appointment with my electrophysiologist. When I returned, he tweaked my pacemaker and regular heart rhythm was restored. I want such conveniences to be restored to middle-class elderly Palestinian women like me. I see them on television, sitting under flimsy tents, with their feet in rubble and mud, wild-eyed, waiting to die. And now, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East, otherwise known as UNRWA, has been defunded because it is alleged that a few of them participated in the October 7th Hamas attack. So even minimal possibilities of relief are gone. I hear the statistics like everyone else. More than 11,500 children killed, 27,968 people killed altogether as of this afternoon, February 6th. Heart-stopping figures, yet only statistics. However important for bolstering resistance and expanding public opinion, statistics are not attached to actual people. The statistical subject does not exist. It is the product of addition and division. In order for our position in support of Palestine to become globally effective, we must remind the world's civil society that behind each statistic is a human being. It's not a question of this side and that side winning and losing by killing people. I had started this video for a webinar to urge the funding of UNRWA. That original intent is still urgent and strong in my mind. The UNRWA must be fully funded again so that that elderly Palestinian woman can reorder her blood thinner and have her pacemaker tweaked. But I want to finish with a few words about genocide. There is a feeling of victory among many of us because the International Court of Justice, ICJ, has ruled that Israel is practicing genocide in Gaza. We must use this ruling to make the world realize that this genocide reflects the policy of a vicious settler colony to clear the colonized country of its original inhabitants, a land without people. The fact that it happened by British mandate does not alter the settler colony phenomenon, for we are not here engaged in matching definitions, nitpicking in a classroom. I know how to do that, but we are now trying to make an active change. And so we must notice that this is what settler colonies do rather than ask, as a professor colleague has, Is this really a settler colony? Would it match the definition? It doesn't matter. We are not here engaged in matching definitions. What matters is the Zionist nationalism, which produced a story that, quote, proved that any Jewish person born anywhere in the world was originally and historically from Palestine, and therefore had the political and legal right of return. I'm myself citizen of a country where so-called sacred geography of the Mahabharata, or Great India, has been used to develop a genocidal ideology of Islamophobia, and so I can appreciate this species of nationalism easily. In the interest of such nationalism, the Holocaust, which was in fact an event of great horror and shame for Europe, can be turned into a legislative excuse for violence. If we want to make real change regarding Palestine, just geopolitical strategizing and enforcement will not do it. We must find every working opportunity and avail of it to make it generally recognizable as a historical phenomenon, this genocide, not just punish, because punishment doesn't really produce change. Law is good, but it's not justice. We must find every working opportunity and avail of it to make genocide here generally recognizable as a historical phenomenon. We, for example, acknowledge the genocide of Native Americans for the establishment of the United States as a vast settler colony. We acknowledge the genocide of the Namibians as the basis for the establishment of the German colony. Indeed, African settler colonization is inevitably marked by genocide. Perhaps that is why the states of Gambia and South Africa are particularly sensitive to it and have complained against genocide to the International Court for Myanmar and South Africa and Israel. We acknowledge the genocide, for example, of minorities in order to establish Burma as an ethnic Buddhist colony. Many more examples can be found. Within this broad stroke account, the establishment of Israel is no exception. The Palestinians must be genocidally removed. At first, they fled or were violently exiled, the Nakba. Then they were viciously colonized with internal access and external travel blocked by arbitrary legislation. Since October 7th, it is full-fledged genocide, which is justified as self-defense, since that is the only legal justification for homicide. The United States uses the same justification for its retaliatory strikes in the Suez area. The best, quote, self-defense, of course, would obviously be to stop the genocide in Gaza. You do not stop violence by violence. Common sense. The genocide in Gaza is also described, for example, just 2 days ago by such a good person as Nicholas Kristof, is described as provoked by the attack by Hamas on Israel on the 7th of October, 2024. It is as if there was peace practiced by Israel before that date. No, genocide generates violence. In genocide, the value of a human being of one race, the colonized or enslaved, is considered less than the value of a human being of another race, the colonizer or enslaver. A Palestinian is of less value than an Israeli. Franz Fanon, the Martinican Algerian activist political philosopher, was also a practicing psychiatrist, and he defined this species of violence, emphasizing that it affects both torturer and tortured, although in different ways, in his classic Wretched of the Earth, and described in very careful appendices in his own dissertation, and described his work to devise a way of healing this particular type of mental illness. Indeed, he had been working with a group of psychiatrists in Brittany and Aix when he was transferred to Algeria. This is our task, to mobilize civil society and to heal the violence generated by colonial genocide. Violence cannot be overcome by violence, nor victories marked by the number of humans killed. The most immediate step toward healing is to refund the UNRWA. Next, still short term, is to end the conflict in Gaza and the West Bank by way of a long ceasefire and a clearing of the settlements through international agency sustained intervention and enforcement, accompanied by the establishment of an equal access welfare state. We must be involved in this as international civil society. As we know, the words international community are useless. There is no such community. But there is a framing of civil society of all kinds of commitments. But for this kind of work, the global international civil society must remain mobilized. Otherwise, we're only talking. And in the long run, so I gave the immediate and the short run ways of healing. But in the long run, through a democratic quality education with no ideological racism, no class apartheid, continued generation after generation until possessive nationalism will come to seem absurd. Before I leave you, let me tell you that I have spoken these words to you in the name of my dear friend and ally of many years, who, in fact, when our friendship began in 1974, the first sentence he said was, if you're going to be my friend, you'll have to work for Palestine. He brought the problem of Palestine to general international awareness. I speak, of course, of Edward W. Said. Today, we are at a point when another massive awareness raising is called for, and awareness of top-down, sustained colonial genocide generating a violence that can be undone only by way of an equalization through the practice of freedom as reconstruction. Thank you.